Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Bobby Hams here with my review of Homeland's final season, episode 3 and 4. First off, I'd like to start off with a correction to the last video. I mistakenly said that season 7 included the attack on the US Embassy in Pakistan, and I totally forgot that season 7 was about the Russian effort to force President Keane out of office in the aftermath of season 6's election meddling. The event I was thinking of happened way back in season 4. Anyway, the new president, President Warner, after Keane stepped down last season, tells his national security folks about Saul's abduction, and the new vice president, whose name I don't even know, like a mindless politician, says that Saul is a holdover from Keane's time and should be fired for running too many red lights, doing too many things that cause problems. President Warner wisely says that maybe they should try to get Saul back first and then move on to anything else. So I already don't like this vice president. Carrie informs the station chief of Gromov contacting her in secret twice and wants to stay in country to find out what he's up to. She's given 48 hours. Carrie isn't told that Saul has been taken. Back at Haqqani's compound, Saul tells Haqqani that he was in as much danger of being killed in the street as Haqqani was. Someone in his group must have told the ISI about his meeting with Saul. Haqqani's son, Jalal, is seen meeting with Agent Qureshi, and it looks like the deal was to have him become the new Taliban leader after his father's supposed death. Jalal is surprised to hear that Haqqani survived the attack, and Haqqani suspects that Jalal is the mole and gives him a call, wants him by his side. Gromov sends Carrie a drop with a time and location. She thinks he wants to be recruited. The station personnel don't want her to meet with him alone, for obvious reason. Haqqani sent a lieutenant to panic Jalal and then intercepts a call between Jalal and Qureshi on an open line. You can tell he seems just a little bit disappointed. He then lets Saul leave. Haqqani clashes with Jalal over what he did, but Jalal won't cop to anything. Haqqani doesn't kill him, rather he opts to throw him out into the street like a dog, disgracing him in front of the entire family. Gromov meets Carrie during afternoon prayer, and the agents running surveillance can't hear their conversation over the prayer and the sound of the water fountain they're sitting next to. Gromov said he saved Carrie from killing herself while she was in the asylum. To prove she confided in him, Gromov recounts when Carrie put her daughter's head under the water and briefly thought about killing her. Carrie is shook that he knows such a thing, since she didn't tell anyone that fact of her life. Back in the US, political turmoil at home is brewing when the vice president is found out to have gone to Ohio to raise funds to challenge President Warner. Meanwhile, Saul and Haqqani reach an agreement on the ceasefire, and Haqqani has a bad feeling about not sending Jalal's head back in a basket to his fighters in the field as a warning. Carrie suggests to President Warner that he get the military on his side in order to sell the idea of a peace deal with the Taliban to the American public. Carrie, for whatever reason, decides to lie to the station chief about what she and Gromov spoke about, and no one had eyes on her for over 90 minutes after her meeting. She says she needed to take a walk and clear her head. The episode ends with Jalal getting picked up from the side of the road by none other than Agent Tasneem Qureshi. Episode 3 of Homeland was a decent payoff to what went down in episode 2, and is clear a fight between generations, in this case Haqqani and Jalal, is on the way. It also raised the question as to Carrie's state of mind during her captivity. Did she really try to kill herself, or did the interrogation work so well on her that Gromov convinced her that she tried to kill herself, and he then saved her? Carrie, as far as I remember, never attempted to harm herself when she was off her meds for an extended amount of time. She became delusional and may have been harmed unintentionally by, because of what she was thinking that she was seeing, but it was never something as deliberate as a suicide attempt, as far as I know, Plus, a tactic that's employed during state-sponsored interrogations, those are interrogations performed by state governments and not terror cells. They use something similar to the good cop, bad cop tropes seen in movies, but it's mostly psychological in this sense. The hostage is made to believe that they have a savior in their corner, someone who is willing to help them survive the ordeal. This person is the only one who stops any beatings or other physical torture, the one who yells at the guards for mistreating the hostage, the one who quote-unquote sneaks extra food or water to the hostage at, great peril to themselves. This savior also chats up the hostage with sad and hopeful stories from their personal lives in an effort to get the hostage to do the same. The savior rarely asks direct questions about operations or missions or personnel, so they seem to be real friends who can understand the hostage's plight. I think Gromov has made himself into Carrie's savior, and that's why she lied about their conversation to the station chief. She may unconsciously feel that she owes Gromov her life, so she's definitely been compromised. We'll just have to see how much and to what extent. So moving on to episode 4, we see that Carrie returns from somewhere, off base, and overhears the effort to decipher the audio of some meeting she wasn't made aware of. On the streets of Afghanistan, it's been a few days since the ceasefire has been in effect, but Samira is still cautious of the Taliban, even as her friend is willing to take selfies with some of them. This was a pretty funny scene to see. Back at the CIA station, Carrie is looking for something in the server room when she's taken away by the military police and driven to Bagram Airfield. For those who don't know, Bagram Airfield is usually where most dignitaries and heads of state will fly into from the US. It's probably one of the most, safe is the word, but it's definitely less hectic than Kabul is in terms of attacks and everything. It's a bit more secure. Anyway, Carrie is clearly nervous about something when she meets Saul at Bagram and learns that the president is headed to Afghanistan. Carrie realizes the meeting she got a whiff of was regarding the president, and Saul apologizes for the secrecy and kind of calmly reminds her that her clearance isn't what it used to be, but the president asked for her specifically. At the presidential palace in Kabul, security is tight and Agent Tasneem has to relinquish her cell phone. Clearly upset about having to do so, she then speaks with Vice President Ghulam. Their respective governments have kept them both in the dark about the terms regarding the ceasefire, and they try to deduce who exactly is visiting Afghanistan to make an important announcement. Ghulam thought it was the Secretary of State. Tasneem, on the other hand, wonders if it's the president himself. She then attempts to retrieve her phone and leave the palace, but Saul stops her from doing so, and he bets that she won't risk making a scene and exposing her resistance to the peace process, not with what he and Haqqani know about her involvement, let's say. With no choice in the matter, she reluctantly stays. Meanwhile, Samira is visited by her brother-in-law. He says that it's been 2 years and asks that she return to the village. Since her husband's death, people have been worried about her being alone, but she felt she had to stay in the city in order to get answers. It was her suspicions about the circumstances of his death that put her onto Vice President Ghulam's phony military base scandal. The brother-in-law said that the villagers talk and that the elders reached a decision. Samira must remarry. And the brother-in-law gladly offers his hand, but Samira sends him away. Back at Bagram, the president meets with Carrie and personally thanks her for her role in achieving the peace deal and for her courage in what she went through while in captivity, and even offers her a job in Washington if she wants one. Carrie is visibly touched by his candor and then finds out that he and the Afghan President Daoud, will fly to a combat outpost to give the news directly to the troops on the front line. Landing in Bagram for the president was just a decoy. He and the Afghan president will leave base in 2 helicopters, and Carrie is going to be part of a vehicle convoy that's made to look like it's carrying the president. Samira's brother-in-law returns under the guise of apologizing for upsetting her, and when Samira allows him to enter, he barges in with 2 Taliban fighters and tells her he's looking out for her family honor and to get her things. She's leaving with him. He's basically kidnapping her. Samira calls Carrie for help, and she has her driver leave the convoy to go give Samira a hand. Meanwhile, President Warner and President Daoud's arrival at the outpost is broadcast to the guests at the palace in Kabul and to the rest of the world. Warner gives a rousing speech about the base personnel's sacrifice in defending the outpost and states the Taliban have negotiated for peace after speaking directly with Haqqani. Tasneem isn't pleased. Having become somewhat of a lucky charm and morale boost for the army soldiers, Max decides not to get on the helicopter and instead stays at the outpost. Carrie disables the brother-in-law's truck and takes their weapons, then rescues Samira at gunpoint. Meanwhile, Saul is whisked away from the palace and informed that the president's helicopter has disappeared from radar. No one knows what's happened to it. Both presidents were on board. The escort helicopter spots the crash, but can't determine the cause from the air, and the mountainous terrain and tree cover make it difficult to land and immediately investigate. They find a possible landing zone a nautical mile away, but also find the Taliban moving among the trees. The chopper opens fire, the Taliban shoot an RPG, and the video feed from the chopper goes dark, and the episode ends with the comm officer asking, "Chop 1, do you read me?" while Carrie and Saul stare at a blank monitor. Being that Homeland is a drama, something had to go wrong with the president's trip to Afghanistan. just for the sake of keeping the story interesting. I thought maybe he'd have been prevented from making the announcement, but when the comm officer mentioned that he was 12 minutes behind schedule after he'd made the speech, I waited with anticipation to see what went down. I mean, literally, in this sense. We can infer that another RPG caused the president's helicopter to crash, but I don't have a clue as to who gave the Taliban the heads up in the first place, because Warner's visit seemed very unplanned. So then not too many details of travel plans or destination would have been readily available and easily shared. Obviously, I think Tasneem and Jalal are working together now, so I think they're involved with the crash at some level, but I don't know who else is a part of their little cabal there. I have no idea where the story is going from here, and I love that it isn't predictable. And I also don't watch the previews for the next episode just so I can be, fully immersed in the episode when I watch it. But that's it for this review. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode of Homeland. This is Bobby Hams, signing out.